The United Nations says that 1,400 Palestinians have now been killed while trying to get food since May, including at least 859 near aid sites run by the so-called Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. The GHF is run in partnership between Israel and the United States and was created to circumvent the established aid groups with demonstrably disastrous results. Well, former US Special Forces Green Beret Anthony Aguilar worked as a guard at a GHF site. He's given several interviews over the past week to blow the whistle on what he says are Israeli war crimes. Jonathan Comricus will join us shortly to give the Israeli perspective on the aid scandal and to respond to what Anthony Aguilar tells me. But first of all, Mr. Aguilar, thank you very much for joining me on Uncensored. First of all, as you know, since you began speaking out, there's been a sustained campaign to discredit you. People saying that you were fired, you're a disgruntled ex-employee, you're making this up for self-interest and so on. What is your response to that, first of all?
When I decided to go on the record, I fully anticipated the discrediting and the smearing. To me, that further demonstrates that the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation can't address the substantial facts, and they'd rather discredit me. Thus far, everything that has been put out about me is incorrect. I was not fired by UG Solutions, the subcontract that I worked for. I resigned my contract in very clear terms. And in fact, the UG Solutions, in providing a written letter to me on the 26th of June upon my departure from Israel, asked me to work for them again, of which I have refused. Our values do not align. I will not work for them again. But I can assure the world that not only is there my word for it, there's also video and pictures that corroborate what I have to say. So my testimony is credible, and so is my character.
Let's get to your testimony. In your estimation, what were the most damning things that you witnessed?
Well, in accordance with international humanitarian law, protocols of the Geneva Convention, of which the United States and Israel are both signatory to. In fact, Israel was one of the newest nations to sign on to the Geneva Convention protocols in the 1950s. Without question, there are violations of international humanitarian law and Geneva Convention and the protocols of which the United States and Israel both abide by. I'll start by saying where the secure distribution sites, they call them SDS, sites that I worked at. And I didn't just work on one or had experience on just one of them. I worked at all four. I also was with the IDF when we conducted a reconnaissance of all four sites before we started operations. The secure distribution sites are built deliberately, have been built and established in the operational combat area of Operations Gideon's Chariots, which ended a couple days ago in terms of the named operation. But throughout the duration of distribution, in a named ongoing offensive combat operation, 3 of the 4 sites were established in the active combat area to put civilians at risk and not safeguard their travel and their movement to areas to receive aid, whether it be water, clothing, medicine, is a war crime. To put them in that situation, to put them in that deliberate danger, is a war crime. To then fire at the crowds using live munitions, machine gun fire, rifle fire, mortar fire, to communicate with the crowd. And the IDF have said this on the record. Many IDF have said it. IDF witnesses to testimony in Gaza have said it, that they use shooting to communicate with the Palestinians. Targeting of civilians with lethal munitions for the purpose of moving or controlling their movement is a war crime. These claims that I make aren't my opinion. They are verbatim out of the conventions of the Geneva Protocol and international humanitarian law that we should all respect and abide by regardless of the justification of the war. I am not anti-Israeli. I am not anti-Semitic. I fully support that Israel has a right to defend itself. But we also have an obligation to abide by international humanitarian law, the protocols of the Geneva Convention, and human dignity, regardless of the justification of a war.
The fact that we've had nearly 1,200 people now killed in or around these aid sites in the last few weeks every single time there is a report of dozens of people being killed, Palestinian people being killed, the IDF releases a series of statements which are either, we're launching an investigation, we're setting up an inquiry, we're looking into this, we were firing warning shots. But I think with one or two very small exceptions, they have refused to accept any responsibility for actually killing any of those people. From what you witnessed and from what you've heard from the ground, how many of those 1,200 do you think are more likely to have been killed by IDF than by Hamas?
In and around the secure distribution sites themselves, no one has been killed. Well, let me correct that. I don't want to be absolute. Very few, I would assert, have been killed by Hamas. The entire area to the south of the Marag corridor, where all three of the distribution sites are, and I would like everybody to know, there were 4. There are now only 3. So under the UN methodology of 400 sites, there are now only 3 that the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation runs. All 3 of those sites are south of the Marag corridor. The Marag corridor in the south in Rafah is controlled by the IDF. All movement to the south of the Marag corridor is controlled by the IDF. There's an active combat operation going on in that area. These civilians that are going to these sites, these unarmed civilians, they're not armed, they're not violent, they're not being killed by Hamas. They're being killed by the indiscriminate shooting of either warning shots or, in the worst case scenario, potentially deliberately. That's not for me to investigate. I also think that the IDF should not be conducting their own investigations. I think that completely takes away the unbiasedness of an investigation, that other entities should investigate these instances, which would require other agencies being allowed into Gaza, into the area to actually put eyes on. If the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation can bring Fox News and bring Ambassador Huckabee to a site, why can't we have international press and why can't we have investigators go in and take a look?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's ridiculous that they keep banning foreign media, and I think going in embedded with the IDF in a very controlled manner. And Bill Hemmer's a brilliant journalist at Fox News, but even he was stressed very clearly that he was operating in very restricted environment, which was dictated to by the IDF in terms of where he could go. Let me bring in Jonathan Comricus. You're going to stay with us. Jonathan, your response to what you just heard.
Yes, hello, Piers. Just to begin, I hope I will be given the same latitude to speak as the previous guest. There were no interruptions and no cross-reference and no really tough questions, and I hope you will lend me the same level of attention here. What I would like to say is that
sure,
I really hope Mr. or Lieutenant Colonel in Reserves Aguilar will enjoy his 15 minutes of caressing global media attention. I think what he's doing is tremendously dishonest. I think there are multiple cases of evidence, sworn statements by his colleagues from the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation that claim that he is not only not truthful, but in fact lying, fabricating, making up events, that he spent more of his time in hotels in Tel Aviv than where he was supposed to be on the ground in the 4 distribution centers, not 3. He's out of the territory, so he doesn't know the situation on the ground, but there are 4 centers up and running. And I think that it is tremendously dishonest to be fired from a place, begging to stay on, begging to have a new contract, then being told that you are not wanted because you are substandard, you are not professional, you have had issues with your colleagues, and you are not wanted on the ground, you do not bring any benefit, you're fired, and then subsequently to go on this little media campaign that you have gone now in order to try to smear Israel. I think that is very dishonest. I think you are full of it. I question your personal and professional integrity. I question why, if this was the case, did you not only say how proud you are to work for the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation as you were working, but why did you try to be reinstated and renegotiate a new contract? Why, if you claim that you saw things that weren't all right on the ground, did you not document or report anything in real time during the little time that you spent there, not in Tel Aviv hotels? And why are we only hearing it from you after you've been fired and discharged from that organization with a clear message from Johnny Moore and your colleagues that you are not wanted because you are substandard, not professional, a troublemaker, and simply up to no good? So
okay,
there are so many questions that really undermine.
Okay, but let him respond directly to what you've just said. So, Anthony, what would your response be to what Jonathan Conricus just said?
I would like to start by saying that I respect Mr. Conricus. I saw him on the news during the opening days of the war, enjoying his 15 minutes of fame. My wife was a public affairs officer in the Army, and we watched him on the news, and I have respect for his profession and for his opinion, and he is entitled to his opinion. What I will say is that, first, regardless of the status of my employment or how good of an employee I was, that does not justify or take away the fact that war crimes have been committed. Not only verified by me as a witness, but also others that have seen it, to include IDF soldiers that are now coming forward stating that they were ordered to shoot at civilians. The sites themselves, where they are built in active combat zones, that's not an opinion. Anybody can look at a map and see where they're built. Regardless of the opinion, that's
obviously
a war crime.
They're in combat zones, yeah. That's not a war crime. It's not a war crime. If that is where the people are, then that is where the food is supposed to go. And to your point of, success or not, up until today, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation has distributed almost 110 million meals in about 2 months period. Far more per person, per location, per distribution site than anybody before that. Hamas, UNRWA, anybody else.
Not true.
And whether you agree to it and whether, Piers, you want to acknowledge that it works, that's a different thing. But 110 million meals, packages of food, that is no small number. And that's including baby formula and all kinds of
food. That is not including baby formula.
They haven't tried to distribute medicine. No, it does include, I just spoke with Johnny, it does include that. It does not include medicine. It does not include clothes and many other things, because that wasn't the core mission of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Exactly, that's not their mission. They're getting water pumped in from Israeli pipes to the areas that have been established as humanitarian zones. So I think that what you're saying,
all right, but Jonathan, let me ask you a question.
Highly questionable.
Jonathan, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Okay, Jonathan, let me ask you. We know that 1,200 or more people have now been killed as they are in these lines of what looks like desperately hungry people, desperately scrabbling for the small amounts of food that are available. Who is killing those people?
So, Piers, we don't know. You can say and repeat the numbers, and you can claim that that is true. We don't know.
Mr. Aguilar was terminated from his contract with UG Solutions on June 13th, 2025, due to poor performance, volatile conflicts with staff, and erratic behavior. Since termination, Mr. Aguilar has spread a false narrative to media outlets around the world, while at the same time begging UG Solutions to hire him back. Mr. Aguilar's activities in the last several weeks make clear that he's making good on his threats to, in his own words, make UG Solutions, BUG Solutions, worst nightmare if they didn't hire him back. So 4 points. Number one, Mr. Aguilar claims he resigned from his role at UG Solutions, GHF's security partner. Fact, Mr. Aguilar was fired. On June 13th, Mr. Aguilar was terminated for misconduct. Mr. Aguilar failed to perform basic tasks that were his responsibility. After being terminated, Mr. Aguilar pleaded for his job back. On June 14th, Mr. Aguilar wrote to the company leadership asking them to reconsider and offering to work in any capacity. As late as July 4th, Mr. Aguilar informed UG leadership that he had submitted a new application for work in Gaza. He wrote to the company on June 14th, quote, "I do not want to leave. I understand that my current contract as the JTOC operator is terminated. Fine, but I can be put on a new contract. If other personnel liking that or not is the fear, then UG is being held hostage. I can be of huge value to this company and contract. Take advantage of me as an asset." And Mr. Aguilar threatened UG Solutions with retribution if he wasn't hired back. And so the next day, on July 15th, he wrote that he could be, quote, "your best friend or your worst nightmare. Stop effing around, put me back to work, and let's get this mission done." In a June 21st message, Mr. Aguilar cited his personal family needs when begging to be rehired. Mr. Aguilar ended the message with, quote, "Figure something out, or I'm on a plane come Tuesday, and the gloves are off." Mr. Aguilar swung between begging for another chance to work for the company and making these hyperbolic accusations. Mr. Aguilar continued to ask for additional opportunities with the company. Again, as late as July 4th, Mr. Aguilar informed the company leadership that he had submitted a new application to come back to work in Gaza. Despite Mr. Aguilar's many attempts to be rehired, the company held firm. Mr. Aguilar's behavior barred him from further work in a complex environment like Gaza. And as the reality sunk in for him, it seems that Mr. Aguilar then became more hostile. Ultimately, Mr. Aguilar has made good on his threat and began to speak to a number of media outlets regarding these false claims. Number two, Mr. Aguilar was very enthusiastic about his work with UG Solutions. His claims that he raised about GHF operations to his superiors is false. Fact, there are many text messages from Mr. Aguilar praising the work he was doing in Gaza, delivering and distributing humanitarian aid to a starving and displaced population. We'll be projecting many of these up on the screen. On May 28th, Mr. Aguilar distributed a signal message praising UG Solutions, and he said, quote, "delivering and distributing 318.3 tons of humanitarian aid to a starving and displaced population." He wrote, "Sentiment in the media, despite whatever people may think about the politics of the situation, your presence, meaning UG's presence, GHF's presence, is seen as a good thing." On the same day, Mr. Aguilar wrote to UG Solutions leadership, "This is a very rewarding mission. I'm excited every day." These are the relevant times during which Mr. Aguilar was claiming to have sent a memo to the company raising issues. On May 31, he shared a similar sentiment with his colleagues, and he wrote to them, "Be proud, be humble. You are making a difference in the future of this region and geopolitics around the globe. That's something to hang your hat on at the end of a hard week." On June 10th, Mr. Aguilar sent another message, this time with a picture of a young girl carrying a bag of aid. He wrote, quote, "hungry, tired, filthy, with a smile on her face. How? Why? Because you've given her hope for a tomorrow, hope that things will improve. Life will get better, a feeling she likely has not known in a long time. You're making a difference every day, every hour, every minute." That's how he was describing the work of these contractors at the time. But while Mr. Aguilar praised UG's success, the company became concerned with his substandard performance and his repeated workplace conflicts. Fact 3. Mr. Aguilar fabricated a memo that he claims he sent on May 28, 2025. Fact. We have evidence obtained from the metadata. You can see this on the screen in the memorandum that the document in question was fabricated by Mr. Aguilar and backdated to May 28th. The actual date of creation, which you can see, June 21st, 2025, was the same day that Mr. Aguilar sent the memo to company personnel and to the press. Notably, on May 29th, one day after Mr. Aguilar claims to have sent this memo to UG leadership, he sent a flurry of messages to the team praising them for their work. Please see the screenshots on your screen, and I will read some of them here. Mr. Aguilar wrote, quote, "Your efforts have brought families back together and have severely weakened the image of Hamas." He continues, quote, "It's a privilege and an honor to see America's best, doing America's most important work in places most Americans will only ever see on TV or read about." Then he said, alongside pictures of several smiling Palestinian civilians, including a young boy, he said, quote, "With the addition of more teammates on their way and new SOPs, standard operating procedures, being implemented, the schedule will become steady, I assure you. Great job." On July 29th, Mr. Aguilar appeared on a podcast in which he showed pictures of the very same young boy, pictured in the text on the May 29th text to his team, the same text where he wrote, "Great job." Now on his podcast appearance, he claims for the first time, this little boy was shot dead by the IDF. Not true. Also, the circumstances in which Mr. Aguilar was in Gaza prevented him from drafting a memo like this in May. The company did not give Mr. Aguilar a computer. Personnel in the ops center, just like Mr. Aguilar, were completely occupied 24/7. Mr. Aguilar neither had the time nor the resources to draft the memorandum that he claims to have drafted on May 28th. Last point, number 4. Mr. Aguilar spoke to the media and provided video testimony stating that UG Solutions contractors fired on civilians seeking aid. Mr. Aguilar alleged that these UG Solutions personnel used stun grenades, tear gas, and other non-lethal munitions in a manner that causes undue harm to civilians. This is false. While it's true that UG Solutions personnel use pepper spray, smoke, and flashbangs to prevent trampling in the crowds of civilians that are trying to seek aid, these systems are deployed consistent with their intended use. There are safety measures in place, and there have been multiple instances in which UG Solutions personnel have successfully dispersed crowds, saving the lives of women, children, and starving individuals unable to lift themselves out of a crush. Warning shots have been used to disperse crowds. But contrary to what Mr. Aguilar says, no UG personnel have ever directed warning shots at civilians. On the ground in Gaza, warning shots are directed upwards, in the air, and towards the coastline, not towards folks seeking aid. Let me be clear, the allegations from Mr. Aguilar regarding the use of force are false. It's also notable that Mr. Aguilar only worked for UG Solutions as a contractor for a total of 27 days, and more than half of that time he spent in a hotel in Israel instead of on the ground at the distribution sites. And not only did the events that he recounted never happen, but he wasn't even in the right place or at the right time to have seen the things that he claims to have seen. Mr. Aguilar's claims to the BBC and others that he was an eyewitness to IDF actions are false. He did not leave the static distribution site during operations, and from there, he would not have had a line of sight to any IDF assets that were behind high berms protecting the sites.